Okay, welcome to the first CREO tutorial session online video. So in this video I'll be covering the basics of sketching and extrusions, which will cover most of what you need to develop frames. Before I start this, I'm assuming that everybody has installed CREO already. And you can see a screen like this upon starting. If it gives you an error sign talking about scripts that can't be run on this page, just keep hitting yes until it disappears. It's quite a normal thing for the student edition. So there are three different levels of object that we'll be dealing with in CREO: sketches, parts, and assemblies. This week we'll only be looking at sketches and parts. Assemblies we'll look at in a future week when it comes to actually putting the objects together. So to create a part, you go new. You see how you've got sketch, part, assembly. You want to start with a part. So you'll be greeted by a screen that looks something like this, which you can rotate around using the middle mouse key. If you hit Shift and use the middle mouse key, you can pan. Now these odd shapes are your three origin planes. Effectively, you've got your YZ plane, your XY plane, and your XZ plane. These are the basic planes on which you can draw. So to start creating a part, first thing we need is a sketch. Start off with something very basic. So to start a sketch, easiest thing to do is select a plane, then hit the sketch button. Now, we're at an odd angle right now, something like 45 degrees, 60 degrees rotation. So if we want to make it easy for ourselves, we can use this button, Sketch View, which brings our view normal to the plane that we're drawing on. Just makes it easier to see what you're doing. So you'll see at the top here all of these different shapes. These are all your basic geometries that you can put into a sketch. So if we want to start with a rectangle, pretty simple. So first click starts it, drag, second click ends it. That's how a lot of these objects work. Okay. If you hit escape, that's like an accept key, and you'll see these blue dimensions that'll show up. Light blue dimensions are what they call weak constraints in CREO, which means you can edit them really easily. So if we want to make this a little more even, let's say offset it by 200, make it 400 wide, so centered about the origin, and make it 150 and 300. Okay, to accept your sketch, you then hit OK. Now you can see I've got this rectangle floating in 3D space. 2D geometry is not terribly useful to us in a three-dimensional design sense, so what we want is to make this three-dimensional. To do that, we use the extrude command up here. So making sure you've got the sketch you want to extrude selected, you right-click, left-click on the extrude command. You'll see this then brings up another dimension and this new tab up here. So if I want to change the depth that I'm extruding through, I can just double-click here, or I can select in this box up top here and change it to, say, 200 mil. Okay. Now, I did mention that was millimeters, but CREO, for, I'm assuming the reason being it was developed in America, always defaults to the imperial system, not the metric system. So to fix this, you can go to File, Prepare, Model Properties, and Units, we hit Change, and select millimeter newton second and hit set. Now use interpret if you've assumed previously that it was in millimeters, because then it'll say 1 inch is 1 millimeter. You don't need to change anything. You can use convert if you are intentionally working in inches and want your outputs to be in millimeters, but that's probably not going to be too useful right now. So we'll hit interpret, OK, close. Simple. And you can do that at any point. So if you go through, do all your design, realize that you did this for some of your pieces and they're in millimeters, then you closed CREO, reopened it, and it went back to inches. You can then change this after you've entered all your dimensions, created all your objects, and it will change the size of the part accordingly. So don't worry if you forget about it, you can do that part at the end. Now, we've got a basic rectangle. Not too useful just yet, so let's make something a bit better out of it. So, another way of doing a sketch, instead of selecting one of the origin planes, is that you can select a plane of an object you've already created. So if we take this surface, left click on that, and go sketch. And now let's say I want to cut a big section out of it. Let's make a rectangle. Simple as that. Escape to accept. Let's say I want this 350 long. And this works the exact same way as it did when you were sketching on the origin planes. Again, if I want to make it a little easier, sketch view. Good habit to get into. And let's make that 50. Now, I've sketched on the side of my object. Simple as that. Again, it's just a sketch. It's 2D, it's not very useful, so let's make something useful out of it. Again, we'll use the extrude command. Now you see, it has added material to the side of the object that was already there. That tends to be the default position, but it's not the only thing we can do. So, the other option for extruding is removing material. So you see right now how it's projecting out from the object that was already there. If I change the direction of it by clicking on this arrow, this pink arrow here, or this button up here with the two arrows in the line, that changes the direction. Now note, it's also defaulted to remove material. It tends to be that if your extrusion passes through a lot of material, it'll default to the remove material option. If it passes through mostly space, it tends to default to the add material option. So yeah, this is one of the most useful ways to remove material from an object, to just cut things out. And you'll see if I change the depth, I can remove more or less material depending on what I want to do. So if I make that 300, 200 rather, I thought that was 400 deep. There we go. So you can see I've only cut material down to 200 millimeters into the block. Now you can toggle the remove material mode using this button up here, which means I've effectively got a useless object now because I'm extruding material back into where I already had material. Or if I turn it back on, it removes. Likewise, if I have remove material on, but it's projecting outwards, it's projecting into space, there's nothing to remove. But you can still toggle the command on and off regardless. So if you put it back inside like that, let's just practice that one more time. So the other way to use the sketch command, which is really simple really. So if you just select the sketch command, you get this box up here. It's not as confusing as it might look. Lots of options, basically just ignore them. Select the plane you want to sketch on. So I'm going to take this top plane. Sort of just technical stuff that is in regards to the orientation that you're drawing. It's irrelevant for the stuff that you'll be doing. Hit the sketch button and you're back at the sketch screen. So basically you can either select the plane you want to sketch on and then hit the sketch command, or you can hit the sketch command and then select the plane. That's all that shows. Okay, let's put a hole in this. So say we've got a frame here and we want to put a bolt through it. So I'm going to draw a circle. Not really too fussed about where this one is. Hit OK. Now, you see the sketch sitting on the plane. Again, we're going to go to extrude. I want it in the other direction because I want to cut a hole for a bolt. And it hasn't gone quite far enough. So let's go to 200. There we go. So, accept that. You see you've got a simple frame with a hole in it. This is the sort of thing you want if you want to put, say, a bearing, a shaft, and a gear in there. If you just want a support for a shaft that goes through here, if you wanted to put an oil sump, whatever you need it for. Okay, so that's the basics of parts, sketches, extrusions. Not really too much to it.